Hey guys, what is going on? It is Jay Campbell from TRT Revolution and the author of the Definitive Testosterone Replacement Therapy Manual, and I am joined by my great friends for episode 10 of the Decoders of Truth podcast. Of course, joining with me tonight, I have Matthew LaCroix, the author of The Illusion of Us. I also have Rex Bear, of course, the founder of the Leak Project. He's joining us. This is going to be an epic podcast. And then we're joined by a very special guest today, Zecharia Lange, and we're going to allow him to tell his story. What's going on, guys? How is everybody doing today?
Hey.
Fantastic.
Awesome, man. So we're going to talk about Zech's story here in a minute. Okay, going to get into why we have him on the show. He's a seeker deluxe, and he's got awesome stuff to tell us. But we're going to just jump in and start talking a little bit about the Decoders of Truth Facebook group and how awe-inspiring it's seemingly become really in the last week. I don't know if it was the last podcast we did, the podcast that Gerald did with Matt about the book and the screenplay and all stuff that's going on around that. But whatever's happened, we are now, as these guys can attest, we are now almost 800 members. And we're adding literally between 50 and 75 members seemingly now a day. In fact, when I went to bed last night, I even posted a screenshot. We had 700 members. And as of right now, we're at 782 people. So it's crazy. It's not a public Facebook group, as everyone knows who's in the group. It's private. So amazing. What are you guys thinking?
I think people are waking up and they want some knowledge. You know, they're ready for those gems, and they see us talk about things that they're not necessarily used to. And they do their research and they find out how applicable it is. And then they just get hooked, man. You know, knowledge it's an addiction. Once you find bits and pieces of truth that have been hid from you your whole life, it just becomes, you know, almost an obsession because you just want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts, Matt?
So I think what we have special that's going on for us right now, and we're still kind of a young group if you think about it in terms of how long we've been doing this. But in terms of how many members are here, but also how dedicated the members are and how much they're posting and interacting, I think what you're seeing, the reason it's so special and it's attracting so many writers and so many other kind of seemingly important people that may have their own groups they've started, but they're all in here. And I think the reason is that we have organization around protecting a certain positive side of the way the truth is, instead of allowing it to kind of just derail itself and have everybody kind of post whatever they want and have the group kind of turn into a vulgar, you know, whatever it is. Forums and those kind of groups can take directions very easy that's not the original intent of the group. But we've maintained a purity in there by holding all these files we've downloaded through this digital library of Alexandria and maintaining such a good group of people that people come in here and they feel safe, that they can find the truth in an atmosphere that's going to be comforting for them, rather than just being attacked all the time or being kind of, you know, they find a little glimpse of the truth here and then something else might derail them. So I think that what they're finding is a place where students can come. You know, it's a philosopher's dream in there, where you have everything from every end of the esoteric, from learning about consciousness all the way through advanced beings all over the galaxy. We talk about everything in between, and it's a place where you can learn any aspect of this depending on wherever you are on this road. So I think it's amazing.
Zech, go on 1 second. But speaking of advanced beings, they may actually already be in the group contributing. But go ahead, Zech.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, going on the path of consciousness, you know, as me as a martial artist, I'm not going to go into depth about the story now of myself, but just being a martial artist solely as a person and finding a new path into consciousness, and what Rex and Matt are saying about you find a little rabbit hole and it just keeps leading into new ones and new ones. And it's become to the point where my energy towards martial arts has totally shifted. Wow. I don't want to go to the gym, you know, I want to refocus. And like,
wow. Refocused, right?
No, yeah, so
You're going to be a black belt in mental aptitude.
Well, look at the correlation with martial artists and those who lead down the path of kind of a more advanced lifestyle, because they have, it always seems to be correlated to me every time I look at it.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
really amazed at the amount of people that are interested in some of this information.
Well, I think Rex hit the nail on the head. People are waking up at a rate that we have never seen before, and obviously we're going to talk about that as one of our topics of discussion tonight.
Age of Aquarius.
Yeah, there you go. It's it's the processional house. I mean, we are changing. The quote unquote hopeful golden age is upon us. And again, it's an amazing time. It really, really is. One of the things I was talking to Matt before you guys jumped on tonight, and also one of my friends a little earlier, is like, it's bizarre how a lot of people I'm seeing, in the world that, I won't call them like low vibrational people, but people that are always kind of sketch in my life or, have been involved in stuff. They all seem to be suffering right now, or something's going on. They're running out of money, or they're injured, or something weird. And it's just like the whole thing of like, that Gerald was talking about, and it's written in one of the books that we're going to start discussing here, The Lost Teachings of Atlantis, about how when that change would come, that a lot of the low vibrational frequency beings or forces would also be aligning at the door, not wanting to give up time, right, to leave the time of now, which is the age of Pisces. So it's bizarre when you really start looking at it from that perspective, to see that there's so much, I guess, allegory. I mean, it's crazy because you see it, but say, let's just jump straight into the first topic of discussion tonight. And again, for everybody, we're going to be doing a Facebook Live at the end of this. I don't know what time. We're going to try to get through this in about 90 minutes and then maybe leave 15 minutes for questions through Facebook Live. So I'll announce it on Facebook about 15 minutes before we get in there. But anyway, the first topic of discussion, and I'm going to let Rex go first, is books that we recommend for people to really familiarize themselves with the ability to, enhance their spiritual enlightenment or ascend. And I'll let one of you guys explain what that means, ascension. And also, what are books that we would like for people that are in our Facebook group? And again, if you're not in our Facebook group and you're watching this on YouTube and you're on the Leak Project or Gerald's site, we will have a link to the Facebook group, Decoders of Truth, so that you can be a contributing member in there. It's free. We encourage you to jump in. But so anyway, I'll start with you, Rex. Books that you would consider, crucial to as like kind of foundational books for people that are into seeking to really, immerse themselves in.
Okay, well, the first book that I'm going to share with you guys, in my opinion, is the most powerful book on hermetics and mind power ever, of all time, literally. I mean, you could take libraries of esoteric knowledge and you still possibly wouldn't get as much information as compiled in this one book for practical applications, not dogmatic rituals that you need to, go kill a cow and sprinkle the blood on an altar. No, we're talking like mental abilities where you can meditate and learn how to not only see things and do things that are far beyond the the 0.01% of the electromagnetic light spectrum that we see. And I'll share it with you guys right now. It's called Initiation into Hermetics, and it's by Franz Bardon. And Franz Bardon was he was a very kind man. He was actually raised Christian, and he kind of had a Christian mindset. When you read about his teachings and what he teaches you to do, he says that you can read these books all you want. That's not going to be the key. It's to actually practice the exercises in the book. And one of the cornerstones to being a true magi, in my opinion, is really learning how to silence the mind. And that's something I often have a difficult times doing. But if you can learn how to silence the mind literally for just 10 seconds, completely shut yourself out, shut everything out for 10 seconds, that's way above and beyond what most people can do. And if you don't believe me, folks, try it. Sit in your room. When you're getting ready to go to bed, just think about nothing. See if you can do it. You'll think of something, I can assure you.
It's almost impossible.
Tomorrow. It really is. So
it's very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one book that I would recommend if that's your thing, if you want to learn how to mentally evolve and spiritually evolve. I feel that this is very powerful. One other book that I want to share with you as far as just ancient knowledge that's very difficult to get. Matter of fact, you talked about the Library of Alexandria, and that library was burnt down. I'm sure a lot of those books were taken and hidden with certain secret societies and mystery schools, yet most people don't have access to that work. And the Crusades and the church, the Catholic Church, the Vatican tried to destroy
Gnostic
teachings right here.
Highly recommend it too.
This right here, you guys, if you get a chance to pick up a copy of this, you're going to get knowledge that they don't want you to know about.
Yeah, I second that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're going to learn about the archons, the controllers. And here's the thing, you guys, even those that are very hardcore Christian and believe in Jesus as your savior and stuff, you guys know me, I'm agnostic. I don't believe that. But for those that do, there's a lot of teachings in the Gnostic texts about Jesus Christ.
Who Jesus was, right.
Who Jesus was. And it's just got a completely different spin versus any Abrahamic Bible that you read today.
That book is, by the way, amazing. And Matt, I want you to jump here from me. I'll go last, and you're going to go next, Zech. But a book by the name of a guy by the name, you probably have had him on your show, Rex, John Lash. In his name. Have you had?
I spoke to him 4 years ago, actually 5 years ago, 2011. I tried to get him back on Leak Project, and he said he's not doing interviews anymore. But
dude, that dude is fascinating.
He knows his stuff. Yeah,
he knows his stuff, but he probably doesn't do interviews anymore because he's literally been attacked by archons. Literally, that's his claim. I mean, in his book, and that's why. I mean, that's my guess. But anyway, that book.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, his book was written after reading that book and then his interpretation of all that stuff. But it's called I Am, what is it? I Am Not in His Image. John Lash, Not in His Image. Amazing book. But go ahead, Matt. What are your thoughts on books?
Okay. So I'm going to speak to a little bit more of a wide range. I want to go from maybe even a little bit more simple. I'd like to start with something like The Alchemist. I really feel The Alchemist, even though The Alchemist touches on some of the deepest levels you can imagine, I think that someone can grasp it on a very early level to show them that there's a world that's hidden kind of simply beneath that we kind of don't really know about, that's right below the surface, and give them a taste of that, and then lead them into something like a book for me that blew my mind was 1984. Let's go old school, and something like 1984 for me showed me that there's a world that is being compared to this draconian society that I all of a sudden realized I was living in. And so that was a blue pill moment for me waking up. And I would go into ancient history. You know, once you get that taste for the fact that there's a truth that's being hidden from us, go into our ancient history and find out what really happened. And I think you should start in a place like The Serious Mystery that Robert Temple wrote. I find that learning about the Dogon and the Sirius connections is a fascinating place that if you read that, and if you look at the connections the Dogon had with the Sirius constellation and all of the information they have and passed on for thousands of years, there's no way that if you have an objective mind, you can't have questions in a place like that. And so once you get in a place like the Sirius Mysteries, I would then get right into, get into Gerald's work, get into the Seventh Planet eventually, maybe read The Illusion of Us if you want to get into kind of a
There's a plug for Matt's book. Yeah, Matt wrote a good book.
No, but I do think it's a great segue into
absolutely amazing book. I mean, we all know Matt. Matt, you stole my thunder, dude. Let me talk about your book, dude. Okay?
Well, I didn't mean it like that. I really did mean it on like an external view. I think it does lead into the other stuff.
I agree 100%. I'm just kidding, dude. It's an amazing book. Anything else you want to talk about books wise?
Ending in a place like the Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising, and then really, guys, I think everyone can probably agree, you really need to really end in a place like the Law of One, and then eventually the Emerald Tablets. This is a place that everyone just needs to finalize with, and then reread The Alchemist and be like, oh my God, and kind of start where you start, end where you began, right?
Well said, Zech. You're up.
All right. I think this is a book that I mentioned in the Dakotas of Truth Facebook a couple times, but it's by David Wilcock, and it's called The Source Field Investigations, The Hidden Science and Lost Civilizations Behind the 2012 Prophecies.
So I did order that book at your recommendations. It's supposed to get here today. I don't know why it didn't come right away, but I didn't get it yet. So I'm interested. Can't wait.
Yeah, I think you're really going to like it. For me, this was one of the first books I've actually ever read. Growing up, I've never read books in my life, but coming across various information that led me to getting this book, this completely changed my perception of reality and, the way I kind of see myself, not only to the world, but into the universe. So he gets into, sacred geometry. He gets into some really crazy scientific experiments where, Dr. Cleve Baxter, who's a former CIA intelligence agency officer, and just goes through experiments and how our energy is related to plants and our interaction, you know, with these different types of energies that aren't necessarily human, but other life forms that seem to, where our energy seems to carry over in the electromagnetic spectrum, where they can kind of sense us and we can kind of sense them, which gives you an idea of why people say guarding is very therapeutic. You know, so you can read all about those experiments. He also gets into, introduced me to the pineal gland and all about the Vatican and how they have all the symbolism, you know, inside the courtyard, and the biggest statue is the pine cone in there. And it's like, what the heck is
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, like what the heck is the Vatican doing with a giant statue of a pine cone, you know, in the courtyard? That's outrageous. So everything from sacred geometry to physics, to scientific experiments, to religious prophecies.
That's the rabbit hole, right? That's what it is right there.
A big compilation of everything that you can possibly dig into, and it literally, it's a book that you'll read it and you'll have to go do research on each of the chapters to kind of, you know, get a better grasp on what he's talking about. And just have
you read, I don't mean to cut you off, but you've read Gerald's books. You're an Anunnaki guy.
Yeah, I've been following Gerald since 2013, when he had his interview with George Nuri on Coast to Coast.
Awesome, man. Cool. Well, man, first off, your story's coming, so we so appreciate you coming on to the show. I know, guys, Zech has deep spiritual knowledge, so we're going to let him go crazy in a minute. One question before I give mine to Rex. Rex, have you had Wilcock on your show?
Not yet.
Not yet. So David is an interesting character. I've heard some stories. One of the guys that I did a podcast with recently, who's also in our group, Xavier Hayes, awesome author, you know, written a number of books. He wrote the book about ancient aliens in Egypt. He's an amazing researcher. But he worked for Gaia or Gaiam or whatever they're called, you know, which is David is involved with. And he's told me some stories that aren't the best about David Wilcock. So, you know, I'll hopefully Rex, you'll get him on the show, but I hear he's a good guy. I mean, clearly he's on Ancient Aliens. So, you know, a lot of people believe in him. So I'm going to give 3 books. These guys have given amazing books. The Lost Teachings of Atlantis, you know, Matt mentioned it. It's also the Children of the Law of One. I mean, it seems like we have someone who's an adept inside the Decoders of Truth posting. I mean, these are some brilliant people that are, you know, supposedly the students of this philosophy. It's also, again, it's written by, I forget the guy's name, but he was an adept master. I would also mention the Masters of the Far East, the 5 or 6 set series.
That's a great
Gerald and I have both read, and I can't think of the guy's name, but all of these books were written literally in the early part of the 20th century. So amazing books. They stand the test of time. And then the last book, which I literally got today, so I'm not, you know, an advanced person as far as the understandings of it, but it's Manly Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And I did skim this, and I read about 36 or 40, I think 38 pages today. And wow. I mean, you literally can see through this book where I'm at now as a seeker with my understanding. And I can see like how the Anunnaki layered in wisdom at almost every century, you know, because that's really the whole book. It's like a tapestry. He goes back into the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, and then he just lays it all the way up until when he wrote the book. And by the way, that book was written in 1920. So yeah, and obviously it's been rewritten and stuff like that, and other people have come in and added stuff to it, but this is the original work. So I mean, it's literally 600 and oh my God, it's 713 pages. So it's deep, and it is. I mean, like I said, I read 36 or 38 pages of it, and I was just blown away how amazing it is. All right, cool, man. Well, guys, anybody final thoughts on books, or before you go into the next point?
Yeah, let me jump in real quick on the Franz Bardon book that I brought up, Initiation into Hermetics. Franz Bardon was actually kidnapped by Hitler in World War II.
Wow.
And the reason Hitler kidnapped Franz Bardon is because he wanted to use his abilities to help win the war.
Of course.
And he was so good with real magic that he could actually say something and create something by what he would say.
The power of manifestation, right?
Yeah, abracadabra, baby. And he talks about it in The Key to the True Kabbalah, where literally he gets kidnapped, and one of his associates gets kidnapped by Hitler. And his associate did this, like, he said something, essentially, this magic ritual saying, and they almost got away. And then they they snapped out of the hypnosis or whatever, and they basically killed his associate, but Franz Bardon got away. But
Wow.
I mean, that just puts into perspective how powerful this guy really was. And he doesn't really write in code. When you read his books, he tells you exactly what to do. He's
Right.
not on the third night of the
Right.
14th blood moon on the 57th cow tail, and you see, you get my point. He's just real smooth about it, and you can tell he's got a kind heart too. That's what I like about it, is when you read through the work, you can tell he's real balanced. And what he talks about God, as if you're raised Christian, you don't really necessarily want to change that midway through your life,
Right.
because when you do meet God, you're going to be like, wow, is this really God or is it not? And so he's like, whatever you really truly feel God is, go with that, and you will see God as that sense when you get to that level, if you're supposed to. So it's just a really universal approach, and I really appreciate that. And as far as the Nag Hammadi, I think that people really should research this because of the archons, you guys. I'm telling you, and when it talks about the archons, the chief archons.
Save it, because we're going to get there.
Are we getting into that? Okay, I didn't know if we were or not, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, no,
Nanu.
We're going there. Nanu.
That's one of the most important pieces we have talking about the archons.
Yeah. So actually, I just wanted to add a couple of things. So I left it off, but because you just wrapped it up really in what it very well said, Rex, is that the study of Hermetics, okay, which is the ancient teachings, the philosophical teachings of the Egyptians and the Greeks. Okay, that's what Hermetics is really just the actual mystery school science and deep esoteric wisdom from Thoth. It doesn't matter, Thoth is a million different names to a million different cultures and races, but that's what it is. And the Kabbalion is another book written about the Hermetic's story, and that's, again, really, it's supposedly written by Hermes, which again is just another name. There you go. Yep, exactly. So exactly. So I mean, I think we all know, all four of us are students of Thoth. We're students of the Hermetic, understanding and philosophy, and it's just amazing to me, at least, how Thoth is just intertwined, right, in all these different books with different names, different cultures. It's incredible, right? Like you just talked about the Kabbalah. I mean, it's all the same.
It's the same thing over and over again, just being told from a different perspective. That's
Truly,
all it is.
Just truly incredible. Okay, awesome, guys. Well, we're going to jump into the next topic here, and this is the story of Zecharia Lange, the way of the peaceful warrior. So anyway, Zech is an MMA fighter. He's got a badass story to tell us. So, dude, take it away.
All right. I've never actually had to dig in depth to myself to look back and tell a story out loud to somebody.
Putting you on the spot, bro.
Yeah, for about the beginning of my life all the way up to now. So if at any point I sound confusing or I need a push along, be like, bro, like, pick it up.
I'm not going to mess with you, man.
Yeah.
Black belt.
Master.
Yeah, right. So I guess the way of the peaceful warrior is essentially what is the topic that we're going to talk about. And I guess that encompasses my story. Pretty much, I'm from Niagara Falls, New York originally. I grew up as a Christian, going to church every day, Sunday dinners, prayers, the whole nine, doing that stuff. And since I was about 4 years old, I've wrestled my entire life, all through Little League, middle school, high school, up until college, where I actually dropped out twice because school is just, I'm okay with that stuff.
Right.
So I guess I could speed up to college wrestling, where it led me into the MMA scene. I just went to college, got a scholarship to wrestle for a local community college, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here.
It's all right.
You were in college?
You're wrestling in a community college, and you became an MMA fighter.
Right. So, I found myself dropping out of college twice, and at the time, my brother started training at a local MMA gym, and I've kind of followed in his footsteps, as usual, with wrestling and whatnot, and just started training with him. And eventually, I came across this guy, Eddie Bravo, who coincidentally enough runs a jiu-jitsu system called the 10th Planet, if you minus the sun and the moon.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Right. So with his system of grappling, he puts extreme emphasis on flexibility and dexterity of your body to be able to use your legs pretty much as arms. you know, so extreme flexibility to where, you know, you can lift your leg behind your head and like hold people in positions and with your legs and kind of use your hands freely to do what else. Whereas other systems, you know, legs are just to lock somebody down and you're using your hands for most of the control. So with his emphasis on stretching and increasing your flexibility, that I think unknowingly to me at the time led me into kind of what Gerald's book would talk about, where structure is function and energy. And now at the time I didn't know any of this stuff about, I need to relate my body to the gravity field so I can receive all these energies and this and that. But at the time I found myself stretching for countless hours, you know, a day, watching TV, playing video games, just talking to my friends, like, what the heck are you doing, bro? You're sitting in weird positions.
Right.
Like, you need to get flexible, you know, blah, blah, blah. Simultaneously at this point, about 2010, where I started fighting as an amateur, I came across Ancient Aliens.
Nice.
And so I had this unknowingly energy hitting me where I'm loosening up my fascial tissue, aligning myself to the gravity field, while at the same time feeding my consciousness this ancient alien shows, like, you know, all these ancient cultures all over the world, and I know nothing about this stuff, but you know, the way they present the stuff, I'm like, what the heck is this crap?
That's awesome, dude.
Look how many people that's woken up.
Oh yeah, that show I think has done wonders for the population. Me,
I agree.
included. You know, so that kind of led me down a path I never thought I would be at, to where, you know, where I'm completely questioning my entire existence and the history of the earth, which at one point I never had a interest in until, you know, getting into Ancient Aliens and all this and that. So eventually I ended up fighting professionally. I moved to Ithaca to fight for Team Bomb Squad here. And this is around 2012, you know, go figure. And I come across Michael Tellinger's YouTube conference at the Breakthrough Energy Movement. This was my first exposure to the Anunnaki, and really touching on very key points that growing up as a Christian, I've always questioned, like, what is God? Why do I have this fear that I'm going to burn in fire forever if I don't, you know, do all these, you know, by all these commandments, and is what I'm doing wrong? I would always ask my grandparents all these questions, but it just didn't seem right to me. So when I found this conference and he's sitting here talking about, you know, all the religious symbols, the origins of those, and where we came from, and these beings creating us, it really made me dive into my brain and question where I came from and how I grew up as a Christian. Eventually, in 2013, I came across Gerald's work when I heard him on the Coast to Coast with George Norrie. And from then, I mean, I guess I've just been a hardcore truth seeker, just, you know, diving into as much information as I can.
Awesome, man.
I think the way the peaceful warrior would come into play is that, you know, all I've known, even up till recently, I've turned down about like 5 fights this year, just because I don't feel like I can put in 100% of my energy towards something that seems in a way selfish to me. Now I've wrestled with the question of, well, if I become UFC champion, I can reach a lot more people because a lot more people will know about me, you know, and I can reach maybe people in the MMA scene are kind of the meatheads that don't have exposure to this type of knowledge. So, but in a way, I can't picture myself putting 100% of my energy into something that doesn't feel like I'm contributing to the whole, you know.
That's awesome, man. Well, do you feel like you're less, I mean, I guess the question, because I'm sure we're all thinking it, do you feel like you're less nonviolent?
I think so. I think it's kind of shown in my training. People will be like, man, why don't you spar? You know, why don't you just fight? I mean, you got all these
What's the matter with you?
Yeah, like, why don't you in the gym? You're skipping practice. I'm like, man, I don't want to. I'll be there. And I'm not the type of person that when
That's awesome, man.
I know, man. I'm thinking here, sitting here, dude, I'm getting like goosebumps right now listening to you say that, because I feel the same way, dude. Like,
That's
I don't even like, I'm at a point now where when somebody cuts me off in traffic, I don't even scream. You know?
Right? Yeah, so it's definitely like the hourglass. Like, if the top of it is filled with sand and that's my martial arts path,
Right.
it just drips slowly you know, down to the bottom where it's all consciousness and knowledge and spiritualness, like learning things, where I don't want to put my energy towards that stuff anymore. It's not doing anything for me in the grand scheme of things. And it's really not doing anything to contribute, you know, to our universal society, you know, at that. So I want to contribute my energy and let my energy permeate in the space and time that's putting out good, you know, vibrations. And
I think this guy's a good guy to bring on the show, guys. What do you think?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
You know, I like to call that, and you know, we need to not ever feel that a feminine aspect of ourselves is a negative thing, because what we need to understand, especially from a male perspective, which is what we have here, is that the divine feminine is called that for a reason. And if we can't connect to a more emotional, a more quiet side of ourselves, we'll never be able to get along this path. We'll be blocked from the very beginning. You can't be this very, very masculine, angry person who's also a very esoteric researcher of all this knowledge, because you can't skip the path like that. Just like Zecharia is saying, right? His energy is being focused in a totally different direction because his soul and his consciousness wants that. That's what it's interested in. It's not interested in beating people up right now.
That's awesome, man.
It's interested in another aspect of himself. But to get there, he needed to find that balance by finding that you know, becoming physically understanding of his own body and all those things. And I think that's incredible.
It is. And Zach, you know what's funny, and I know you're going to add something, Rex, in a second, but so Zach and I have become friends in the last like 3 or 4 weeks because his girlfriend is, you know, with Monica now and Gerald's wife doing their own stuff. So, you know, we in the background, we're kind of talking and stuff, and we've been doing messages. There she is. Hey, Erica.
Hi.
So we'll have Eric on towards the end, but Zach is like we're on very similar paths, and when I told him about the Kabbalion, it's like, you know, all of us say, Rex and Matt, you know, on the previous shows, right? No coincidences are happening in life anymore, right? Like this is all meant to happen. Like I feel kind of weird because like I'm glad he told me what he just told me, but the Kabbalion is gonna like, dude, you're gonna be out of MMA for good after you read the Kabbalion.
Right? Yeah, I'm gonna order that book very, very soon.
It's amazing. I mean, but it's the same thing what you're saying. It's like you're on that continuum. And as I read that book, I told Monica, I was like, there's just no reason to have anger anymore because everything is on a continuum and everything's coming around. And the pendulum is going to swing and it's going to come back. And there's just, you can't avoid it. It just,
instead of being angry, just laugh. You just laugh.
It's just acceptance, dude. Like anyone who's your enemy, you know, like all of us have like family members that we don't get along with or friends that, you know, we've grown apart from. And it's like, once you understand that the continuum and the pendulum is going to swing from both sides, there's no reason to hold animosity towards that person anymore.
No, not at all.
Go ahead, Rex. I think you were going to say something.
Oh, that's awesome. First of all, I like how you bring that up, you know, let go of all anger. That's certainly some things I got to remind myself of sometimes because I see so much, you know, I see people getting taken advantage of every single day with the pharmaceutical companies, the marketing, the commercials, the big pharma.
Horrible, man.
And I don't know why it pisses me off so much because it really shouldn't, but it just does. I guess at a deeper level, I see it hurting people and I feel like I just want to help them. And I guess that's why I do the Leak Project, to wake people up, at least give them an option for them to help themselves. If I can't help you, go help yourself, and at least you know how to now. And a lot of times I feel like people have just been lied to so much and maybe they're comfortable enough to where they don't want to break out of that. They can continue to go through that slow boil. But Zecharia, man, I got to tell you what you're doing as far as breaking off that path, because I love watching mixed martial arts. I mean, I watch what those guys can do and it is incredible, but I also feel for them at the same time. You know, you see those heavyweights just punch each other in the face.
Oh, yeah.
That's like getting a 2x4 and just going boom, boom, boom. Oh yeah, let's go do it again.
Crazy.
You guys are pretty incredible, man. I got to give you props for that. But the fact that you're kind of breaking out of that, now you're going to be like the mental Jedi, and you're going to take all your energy from the physical side of things and still keep that balance and push it towards the spiritual level, and that's going to take you to a whole other world, man.
Yeah,
you're going to be way above and beyond most people.
Amazing.
Peaceful Warrior is the perfect title for him.
It's a good one.
Well, what, like from like a money magic system standpoint, you know, because I'm sure people are thinking that now. So you're not going to be fighting professionally. like unlikely. I mean, maybe something will come up and you'll, find the passion or get it. But so are you just training people now for a living in martial arts, or what are you thinking about, like, doing to pay your bills, man? As Rex always says, everybody's got bills and problems.
Yeah, I'm not
issues.
totally out of the game. I'm still teaching people. I can still help others along their path, and maybe they'll find a similar path, as me through martial arts. So like you, Jay, you gotta stay active, and whether it's lifting weights, doing cardio, martial arts is a great outlet and activity to keep your body busy, take your mind the crazy things that we're
so do you think that part of your teaching then, not just the physical training components and aspects, but do you think part of your training, because dude, you are a spiritual warrior, I mean, is that where you're going to evolve that? Because I find myself now, you guys are going to laugh at this, but my partner and I, Jim Brown with TRT Revolution, we do a lot of consulting with men, and a lot of these guys are like C-level executives and just high-level business people. And guys, it is amazing to find out how successful dudes are so struggling with the internal, right? Like they've built, so I work with a couple guys that are truly billionaires, and they've built like megalithic companies, and they've got it all, if you look at things from a perspective, and they're literally dying, like combusting inside. And if you don't do the inner work, right, you don't do the meditative, the mindfulness, something that you are looking at me, right, and you're not worried about your business and all of your employees and your wife and your kids and all these things, things, right, shiny things and money. Yeah. If you don't do that inner work, you eventually do unravel. And it's like, I say these things to you, Zach, because like just talking to you right now and really finding out the kind of person you are, and I know all these guys would agree with me. I mean, like, dude, you could definitely teach people not just the physical training, but, the mental stuff, right? Because it really is mental fortitude and spirituality that allows a person to really, truly make it in the world.
I think the more you understand yourself mentally and consciously, internally, the more you can show it externally through your movements. In martial arts, maybe you move a little bit more gracefully, or maybe during your training you take care of yourself a little bit better. Take care of your wounds, stretch a little bit, ice them. Nurture yourself a little bit. And this might, a good book to maybe go back to recommend would be Bruce Lee's book, The Tao of Jeet Kune Do.
There you go.
And this whole philosophy of like, be water, what does that really mean? We're made of water. It's like, become one with yourself. Don't, treat yourself with respect, and, through your training, like I said, just, taking care of yourself, and not look at it more of like for example, he talks about like your water and waves crash. So you don't always have to crash, but instead, go with the wave.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
There's times where you need that collision, but then you gotta dissolve back and go with the flow a little bit. If that makes any sense.
No,
it's
totally
all about the energy, following your energy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Totally awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. We got a bunch of other things we're going to jump into. And again, Zach is a serious seeker, so he can speak at a super, super high level. I mean, but I think the goal on this show is, and again, I know Matt said this, it's a collaborative, the Decoders of Truth group is growing exponentially right now. We're so happy about it, but there are some amazing, amazing characters in that group. And if you but if you'd like to come on to the show and share your wisdom with us, and whatever it is that you may or may not be able to provide us, please reach out to us, because we want people to come on the show, similar to Zecharia, and provide their truths, or speak their truths. So the next point, and we've got like 4 more points, and then again we're going to have a Facebook Q&A, or Facebook Live Q&A, so a lot of people in the Decoders of Truth can jump in. But the next 3 points are really all the same story. I'm just going to kind of read them out, and then we're going to just kind of go the path we want to go. So how important is our mission, meaning the Decoders of Truth mission, the Leak Project, Seventh Planet Broadcasting, all of the things all of us are doing in helping people along the ascension, getting your soul right path. And then I think a component of that is the elimination of fear, why there's no reason to be fearful. And actually, I want to discuss a little bit why people are fearful, which is the normalcy bias. And then the preparation, right, of the change that's coming. Rex already hinted at it. We're changing from Pisces to the age of Aquarius. So who wants to go first? Jump in.
All right, I'll go ahead. Some people come up to me and they say, You know, I've been telling so many people about all these truths, and they just look at me and laugh, or they turn the other way, and I'm just so frustrated. And I think to myself, if you can change one person's life, one person's perspective on everything in the world, and change their entire timeline, you've already made an incredible contribution to society. So, you know, we don't need to look at this as sheer numbers where, oh, you need to go out and find hundreds of people to try to spread the truth and, you know, be some kind of a reverend traveling around. But all you need to do is be a good person and try to help who you can. And when you do that, you'll cleanse your consciousness, and you'll feel an incredible energy from what you're doing. It really is. It's called light work for a reason, because
Right.
you're doing good work. So, whatever your mission is here, you have to find out that yourself through your own experiences. But whatever it is, it's always part of helping people and assisting others, because that's the whole purpose of us all being here as a collective community. What do you think, Rex?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like how you brought it up as far as you don't have to tell everybody, you know, just tell a couple of people if you feel like that's important. You know, I still feel guilty. I brought this up on a podcast a couple weeks ago. I was having brunch with Kristen, and I was talking to her essentially about how I think that most doctors now are, not most of them, but many of them are paid drug dealers essentially. And they can get away with murder. You know, oh yeah, you need more drugs? Sure, I'll prescribe you more drugs. No problem. I've lost 2 people over the past year that I've been close to because of pharmaceutical drugs.
Right.
And they shouldn't have died. They were way too young. They had way too much going for them, but the doctors would just keep prescribing them drugs. And once again, there's some really good doctors out there. I'm just giving my opinion. And hey, I'm sure there's other things going on as well. With that said, though, we've got to teach, not preach. I think that's the most important thing, because I used to be the preacher. You know, I worked for a Fortune 100 company, and during lunch, I would see people drinking Diet Coke and heating up stuff in plastic in the microwave. And I'd be like, man, step away from the microwave. Don't heat that up in plastic. I wouldn't recommend drinking that Diet Coke. Oh, you know that gum has phenylenolenics in it? I was crazy mad. And I was telling everybody. I mean, seriously, I even had the district manager come to me essentially, and he said, Rex, lay off, man. You got to quit talking about this stuff. We're at work. And I didn't. I just kept doing it. And but one of my really close friends at the time, and I think I kind of contribute my agnosticism to him, because I used to think I knew everything, and he was always like, how do you really know? I mean, how do you really know? And he's the epitome of somebody that's agnostic. But he said, you know, Rex, you sound like a preacher sometimes, man. Maybe you can come, you know, you sound like somebody out preaching religion or something. And that really kind of hit home. And I thought about that deeply. And I think the best thing to do is help somebody find their truth by them finding the truth, not by you throwing it at them, because you can give an opportunity. Hey, look at that over there. Check this out, kind of lead them to the path. But if you are just throwing it in their face saying that's bad, don't do this, don't do that, it's going to have an opposite effect, I feel. And that was one of the reasons I didn't warn these people I heard behind me talking about going to get a vaccine, because they were older and they were at brunch. And I kind of thought, okay, should I ask Chris? And I said, should I say something to these guys? And she's like, it won't matter anyway.
Right.
So, you know, but I thought about that, and I said, you know, if I had a vaccine insert to actually give to them, black and white, just a copy, say, hey, take a look at this. I'm not telling you not to get a vaccine.
Right.
You're going to know you're putting formaldehyde and genetically modified E. coli feces in your blood. Take a look at that. Do you still want to do it? They might say yes, but at least you're giving them something to look at. So that's kind of where I think that many people should look at. Teach, don't preach. That's my saying there.
So real quick, Zach, you're jumping in a second here, but Rex, like, how crazy is it going to get when you and I do our podcast in about 10 days when we talk about the medical establishment? Because as passionate as you are, you're not even going to believe what I'm going to tell you about hormone optimization with doctors.
I'm sure it's just going to take me to a whole other level. I may not to date it afterwards, you know.
It's going to be amazing, bro. You're going to be excited. I'm going to get you so fired up. You're going to literally break your microphone. Zach, what are your thoughts?
So the importance of our mission to assist and help other people, to me, I kind of look at myself or everybody in the universe as we're all like little cells. You know, we're made up of 50 trillion to 100 trillion cells. And when your cells stop communicating with one another, we become in dis-ease. Right. You know, and so you can imagine, like, if your heart cells were like, I don't like the liver cells because I'm up here and they're down there, and I can just do away with them. So I think when you understand at a deep level within yourself, in the grand scheme of things, what you're a part of, not just with our species, but a part of the earth, and the earth a part of the solar system, and the solar system a part of the galaxy and the universe beyond. Like when you're operating with yourself and things that you think and the actions that you take with that understanding, it's important that you communicate this knowledge to other people and try to bring them to that same type of awareness. Because I think when you kind of figure out and have this awakening, the first thing you want to do is like tell everybody about everything you know. Just like Rex is saying, you can't help it. You're just like,
shout to the world.
You gotta listen to me. I'm telling you the truth.
Internet kill switch, FEMA camps, round up.
Yeah, people are like, who is that guy? Nobody listens to you at all.
Exactly. And this is something that I've struggled with being a MMA fighter. Like, there's not a lot of people in my immediate circle that I can talk to about this stuff. And when I talk to them about Anunnaki and aliens, they're like, you believe in aliens? Are you crazy? And it's like, you don't? You know what I mean?
100 billion planets.
Well, that's actually an interesting question, and we should save that for another show. But and Rex, you can definitely add a lot of weight to this topic, but that's actually a misnomer, because the truth now on the planet, I've seen they've done, actually, the Pew Research Center has done statistics. I think 80% of people on the planet globally, again, based on their statistical analysis, believe in aliens, right? Isn't that true, Rex?
I don't know the exact number. I just know it's really high, and more people do believe in them than not. Absolutely.
But it's a good point, because what Zech was just saying is most people aren't going to admit it, right? I mean, right?
Especially around other people in a gym or something.
Right.
Yeah. Pump the weights, man. Yeah. Aliens are for...
Right, exactly. No, but I mean, go back, Zech, to what you were saying. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it was a really good point. I wanted to add that.
No, absolutely. Maybe that's actually true. I'm saying more from a standpoint where when you start to challenge people's belief systems,
right?
So you tell people there's aliens and they created us, and they're like a hardcore Christian or whatever they may be.
It's not a good place to start.
Yeah, the first thing they do is try to lash back at you and be like, "Oh, you need Jesus in your life," and stuff. And it's like, don't
Earth's flat, dude. Fallen angels.
The Nephilim.
Yeah, so I kind of look at myself as a cell of the universe and a cell to the earth. And, the more we can communicate this information with everybody else, the more it's going to be beneficial not only to myself in the long run, but to everything in the end. So,
awesome. All right, well, I'm going to put all you guys on the spot because I want to get a little bit dark. I mean, obviously, Gerald's not here with us today. Matt's converted me. I am now Mr. Positivity, part 2.
Yes. I'm very proud of you, Jay. I just want to say
incredible, man. He's put the spirit of Thoth. Well, Thoth was in me, but now I guess I've got like the spirit of Enki and Anu and Nanar, and all of them are in me now. But so I'm gonna just put you guys on the spot. So there's no reason to be fearful. Rex is gonna go first. Rex is interviewing so many people talking about Nibiru and Earth changes and poles demagnetizing and the equator flipping and continent shifting and the ice.
Total apocalypse of everything.
Yeah, I mean,
don't forget about Brain Puree. We got Brain Puree, the Cosmic Cafe.
The Cosmic Cafe.
Poor Rex gets everything on the spectrum. I feel so bad for him.
But hold on. I want you guys. You guys are all going to drop in here, and again, I want to set it up for the audience a little bit more. So we all agree, all of us as seekers, that we are entering a new age, right? The zodiacal house is changing, whether you believe in the Anunnaki or not. I mean, we believe in the Anunnaki. Of course, we believe in the Anunnaki, and I think all of us can conclusively discuss it. We can't prove it, but we can conclusively discuss it. But the reality is that we are entering a different time, and I'll just use, and I just posted something in the Decoders of Truth recently, but the Lost Teachings of Atlantis, the adept Zane, and he's a fascinating character who wrote the book, essentially. He didn't write the book, but he's the master that the guy who did write the book, John Peniel or whatever, models and learned all of the stuff from. He says that, there's going to come a time where the dark, quote-unquote, brotherhood, forces, sons of Belial, whatever you want to refer to them, Christians refer to them as the demons, the Satanists, the Luciferians, whatever you want to call them, are going to align and come back and be strong like the time before Atlantis. And, you know, again, whether you believe in Atlantis or not, there's pretty much conclusive proof now out there that Atlantis once did exist. It collapsed. It was a high society or a high.
There's even old maps showing it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very powerful, society in antiquity that collapsed. And for whatever reason, it collapsed. But the book, The Lost Teaching of Atlantis, says that the reason it collapsed was because these dark forces again aligned. And that's where we're going to go into archons, because I wanted to save that for you guys. So Rex, you get the first stop. But again, let me set that up. So the archons, as defined by the Gnostics, are this parasitic dark entity. They're kind of amorphous. They're kind of everywhere. If you've listened to any of the Decoders of Truth podcasts previously, we've all talked about them or referred to them as serpent beings, as just, again, the Dark Brotherhood, the Sons of Belial is what they call them in the Lost Teachings of Atlantis. But they're everywhere. They're essentially a parasitic, low vibrational density organism, a life form that was summoned into our world, again, during the times of Atlantis. And again, they've been evidently, somehow, and I don't understand the mechanisms, but they're able to come back. And so in that book, they set it up by saying that in the change from the next age, which again, right now is Pisces, we're moving into Aquarius right now, they will align themselves again, and their dark forces will be, quote unquote, representative of the NWO, Hillary Clinton, whatever, however you want to align them. So talk about the archons, Rex.
Okay, so the archons are essentially our world controllers. They're the hidden hand, those behind the scenes that are orchestrating virtually all the wars and chaos and destruction, and they literally feed off of it. Kind of like if we want to go eat a good steak, or if you're a vegan and you want to go eat some vegetables, and that's literally some type of substance. Well, archons, their substance is energy source. It's right. Feeding off of pain and suffering and even good stuff too. I mean, they'll just look at it as a gourmet buffet, literally. And that's why when you look at the media and how powerful it is, I think there's got to be some serious archon control in the media.
Oh, yeah.
Think about your emotions. When you're watching a movie, you'll get excited, you'll get sad, you'll get happy, you'll get mad. Those emotions are all orchestrated and they go somewhere. Those electronic impulses from your brain,
exactly,
and that adrenaline and those chemicals that your body produces, all of that energy goes somewhere, and there's something feeding off of that energy. Now, they have psychological proof that if you get in a car accident, or if you're in a certain event, a specific part of your brain activates. Well, if you're 100 feet away and you watch somebody get in that car wreck, the same part of your brain activates as the person that was in that accident. Therefore, if you're watching a movie with 1 million other people, 100 million other people, that's creating a group consciousness. Yep. Therefore, you are creating reality and
hive mind. Yep.
Exactly.
Reality and hive mind. Absolutely. So these archons and these entities like Yaldabaoth, I want to talk about Yaldabaoth for a minute.
Hold on. I got to stop you, Rex. Are you going to shapeshift? Because this is not the same Rex that I was talking to 4 weeks ago.
Look how deep he is. He's going deep.
Continue, my brother. This is deep. Go.
I got to give Gerald a little bit of credit on this, because he's been.
I think Rex is shape. I think this isn't Rex. He's been taken over. He's going to shapeshift at 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay, so Gerald was like, he's been giving me a real hard time about my agnostic approach, and I could tell that it kind of bothered him, because he was, in a good way, not in a bad way anyway. He was like, man, I'm showing you all this info and you're still saying you don't know. Why is that? And I think it's just because he gives some beautiful gems of knowledge, and you certainly can't deny the information he brings to the table. I think what it is not necessarily, it's not fear. It's wanting the truth so bad that until it's like literally chewing on your face right in front of you, you can't really accept it, because you just want it. And like I told you guys before,
like they've done to Hillary, right?
Yeah, good old Hillary. She loves us.
She loves us.
The transmission goes out.
So they got to me. I just got harped. Mind controlled there. Anyway, so yeah, Yaldabaoth is trying to touch in here. Now, the archons, let's go back to the archons for a minute, because Yaldabaoth, the chief archon, is a jealous god. He's just like Yahweh. So I'm wondering if Yahweh and Yaldabaoth are the same entity that are just referred to in different concepts. And there's one other thing I want to bring up. Read the second discourse of Seth. I just read this the other day, and literally, you guys, whether you're Christian or Muslim or any Abrahamic religion, literally in this book, it essentially says Moses was a joke. The crucifixion of Jesus was a joke. It literally says a joke. Abraham was a joke. And all these world leaders that said they worship Christ and God are all jokes. I mean, it is just like, this would piss off any religious person. Yet it's Gnostic texts. These are the most unbiased. These texts have not been retranslated 50 times in 50 different languages with a round table of people saying, take that word out, put that word in. Let's add this sentence there. Let's make this sound good. Let's change the date to the 25th of December so we can worship the sun god for Jesus. You know, they didn't do any of that stuff. This is just a translation from a Coptic text that was found in 1945, a bar or a jar with a bunch of scripts in there. This guy found it in the Nile, the Nag Hammadi. Right. And there you go. Here you have it, you guys. This is unmolested scripture right here. Now,
well, they actually didn't even
say it's true, but it's at least it's not. It hasn't been retranslated 100 times. No. I'm not saying I agree with it.
Well, Rex, it's so esoteric and so deep in its ornate knowledge that, remember, it wasn't even allowed out into the public's eye until like the last 15 years or 12 years. I mean, we weren't even allowed to have access to that.
And why is that, folks? Why did the church and why did they go destroy all this information? Why is it that we're only hearing one side of the story? I mean, if this stuff doesn't matter, if it's just poppycock, then why did they destroy it?
But wait a minute. So great point. Yeah. By the way, Rex, I got to give you claps, man. That was awesome, man. But golf clap. But realistically, you just hit on something better, and I'm going to let these guys answer it. So it's now coming out, right? So here goes Mr. Positivity to tell us why it's now coming out. There are forces of light in play, right, Matt?
Yeah, and so Rex said many, many good points. And one at the end, he said, in particular, he says, if this information doesn't matter, then why is it that it simply won't be released until like a certain time? And the answer to that is for nearly the majority of our history, in every facet has been tampered with the truth. And so what really has happened in our past, you can find out those truths in places like the Nag Hammadi Library, which I like to equate into a similar comparison to something like the Library of Alexandria, which are these libraries of knowledge that contained very, very important information. And the Library of Alexandria was destroyed and burned down, and all that information was lost. But the Nag Hammadi library was one of the most fascinating aspects that I talk about in The Illusion of Us several times, because for me, it captivated me when I came across it, because it represented a time capsule of information, like Rex said, that did not get tampered with. What is this information? It's basically the pre-religions before they ever were rewritten or changed around and molded into all the different names they are now. It was Thoth, basically Thoth's teachings. He was the original. Yeah. He was the original founder of the Gnostic writings. And so what you have then is an original piece of Thoth writing. With what
Matt, the Gnostikoi, right? The true translation, the Gnostikoi were the adepts of the mystery schools. Straight up from Egypt and Osiris. They escaped. I mean, again, you can read it. It's all in here. You know, what did those guys do? They were originally, you know, when they first left and they were mystery schools, they were allowed to celebrate and be in public and practice alchemy and do all the things they did. And then as, you know, the derailments came into play, and the Middle Ages came into play, and the dark forces, you know, the Inquisition and all that, they basically made those guys go into hiding. And everything, you know, the Freemasonry, the 33rd degree Masons, the Rosicrucians, they basically all had to hide themselves and like essentially create layers and what would you call it, like trap doors, so that no one except at the highest level of initiation really even knew what they were about. And that's why the Masons of today are clueless. They have no understanding of Masonry. But go ahead. I don't want to usurp you. Zecharia, go ahead. What are your thoughts on the Archons?
Man, you guys, I think, just killed it. I don't know if there's much more I could say. I'm taking pretty much the student standpoint right now, just listening to you guys.
Okay, awesome, man.
Talk about Atlantis too would be a good segue into that area you're mentioning.
Yeah, so I have a lot to talk about with the Archons. I mean, Rex, I'm like you, dude. I'm a huge Gnostic student. I've read all of those books. Like when I read, you know, Nash's Not in His Image, that blew me away, man. That melted my brain. I mean, again, the Gnostikoi are the mystery school adepts. They are the men and women most of them were, by the way, they killed so many of them. These are the ones they were burning alive. They were burning them at the stake. These people had all of the esoteric wisdom of our originality and where we are as a species. And Constantine, the Emperor Constantine tried to kill all of them. I mean, that was his goal.
Can I put a note in there after?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
The Nagamani library, the reason we actually still have that, the only reason we have it, is the Gnostic people knew that they were coming or they would destroy it. And so they actually buried it far below the sands so that another time when it could be recovered, it could actually be heard and allowed to the people eventually, right? And that is fascinating to me to think about. And the same thing happened in other places where they would, like, I think the same thing happened in Göbekli Tepe, where they had to bury these ancient time capsules of wisdom and knowledge because they knew they were actively being sought out to be destroyed. And that to me is fascinating if you let that marinate. Think about that for a minute.
So Rex, let me ask you a question. Yeah, that is amazing, Matt. Good points. Clearly your opinion's a little bit shifted here. So, I mean, obviously in a way that we all agree with, but and we've had this discussion, but I mean, is Hillary Clinton, quote unquote, the power basis of George Soros in North America, whatever you want to call it. And then the NWO of North American portion, and then the NWO of Germany, with the Chancellor of Germany and whatever that crew that runs NATO and all that stuff. Not NATO, but the European Union. Would you say that they are infected or at least affiliated with these archontic forces right now? I mean, you would have to say yes, right?
Okay, I think almost everybody on this planet has some type of influence from archonic control. Have you ever seen a movie?
You're right.
Have you ever read a book? Have you ever looked?
Control us. You're right. The ego. That's the ego. Maybe that's the ego. Maybe you're right.
I mean, unfortunately, I think that we've all been affected by archonic influence. And you know what? I don't think that all archons are bad. I don't. As a matter of fact, I mean, you can read through these treaties and
they can't be
that are there to help us.
Yeah, so, they can't be.
I don't know what the archons are. Right? And hey, I'm not saying I know the answers. I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm still agnostic to many things. But what I'll tell you guys is I've read all this stuff since 2011, and I've really just kind of been trying to break down the symbology, because you read this stuff and on a logical standpoint, when it talks about how Sophia essentially created Yaldabaoth, and then Yaldabaoth thought he was God, so Yaldabaoth created a bunch of other archons, and then they're like, hey, look, we're all gods, we can do whatever we want. And I mean, imagine you being in that position where you're created with all this power and you're like, geez, I'm freaking God, I can of course you're going to have this, but yet you don't have the, I guess, spiritual essence to back up how powerful you are. That's a bad combo. I mean, if you're going to be you got to have a good heart. You can't, otherwise you're going to be Lex Luthor Superman, and that's a whole other story.
That's it. You got it.
Well, it's like Matt always says, right? There's no matter what, there's a duality. So you can't have love without having hate. And hate eventually becomes love. Right?
It's always going to be balanced.
Right. I mean, it's that continuum. Where are we on the level of the continuum? Everything comes around. The pendulum swings according to the Hermetic principle. So fascinating. Yeah, I agree with you, dude. I mean, there's no possible way that there isn't good and negative, positive or dark and light forces of the same, beings. It just seems like there's so much craziness with Hillary. And again, we can't talk too much about Hillary because we know the transmission will get cut off in the middle.
And until we can get all money and this dark corruption out of our political system and out of all of these systems, we won't be able to be free of that kind of dark and tyranny that we have right now. But we're getting to a better place.
No, we are. It's going to be, like you said, it's going to be fascinating what happens in 2 months. Zach, what are your thoughts?
I actually agree with Matt with what he just said about money, and I know we were talking about this earlier, but until people even realize that the Fed is even a private corporation, I don't even think they know about that. Like, the whole money system is rigged in the first place, and they're controlling all the media and the whole politic voting system. So, no matter who it is, Hillary, Bernie, or I'm not even watching the elections.
No, it's a sham, right?
Yeah.
So, no matter which puppet's in place, it's
WWE.
you're manipulating what's happening. So I don't, whether it's Hillary or whoever, until we can expose the fraud of the money system, I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
No, you're right. So I'll ask you guys, Rex, go first. I mean, we talked about this on, I think, episode 4. We said what's going to happen, and I know everybody said what's going to happen, and we all said Hillary's going to get installed, and Rex said business as usual. But if the next event, we all know the next event is coming. We don't know what it is, but is the next event, I want you guys guesses, is the next event currency collapse or financial collapse? And maybe the same thing. Go ahead, Rex.
I don't think so. Just because they've been talking about financial collapse now for so long. Maybe I'm desensitized, but I feel that we've been closer to the brink of financial collapse than we are now, such as back in 2008 when they had to just prop out all that money again.
Right.
The housing markets, et cetera. People thought, house, oh yeah, let's go refinance that house 12 different times.
Right.
Stupid, but that's what happened. Now, as far as I want to talk about Hillary for just a second, because I've interviewed Douglas Dietrich several times and talk about
fascinating dude,
whistleblower. That guy is at a whole other level. I mean, the stuff he says, I don't like you said you're a little bit nervous about talking about Hillary. The people he talks about, I'm surprised that he's still around. That just he actually was going to be used as a patsy on a failed assassination attempt that they were going to do, and he basically he exposed it. And somebody else ended up getting killed because of it. So, I mean, the guy's just, he's living out of.
Yeah, I watched that whole interview. Amazing, mind-bending stuff.
Absolutely. But as far as Hillary goes, I think her health is good enough to where they can use her in the positions of, okay, go do this.
Right.
That's really what they are. I mean,
of course.
They're public figures. And as far as Reagan, and the reason I brought up Douglas Dietrich is because he talked about Reagan. And when Reagan was in office, he said he was like
a vegetable, right?
Practically, right? I mean, he had Alzheimer's so bad he didn't even know what he was talking about half the time. He was just reading the teleprompter. Do I know that's true? No, I don't. I'm just giving you guys information that I've been told. So
I agree with you. I actually read a book. Peter Moon wrote a book about Reagan. He had a whole chapter about that too. And Nancy, and that's an interesting story about both of those two. But I have heard the same thing about Reagan at the end of his second term, that he was legitimately almost not even there.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they did it in the 80s, they're, in the 90s.
Imagine what they're doing right now with Hillary. Well, again, I'll give a shout out to my boy Mike Cernovich.
Do what you say.
I'll give out a shout out to my boy Mike Cernovich at dangerandplay.com. He wrote a fascinating article. He did a breakdown, an analysis of when Hillary was up on that podium and she, had and then that black guy, the handler, so to speak, nobody knows who the guy is, came up and did like the Manchurian CIA, Monarch 3, boom, 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 and all of a sudden she was like,
Delta.
Yeah, it happened. But he's got it on the video. I mean, he's got the actual slowdown, the breakdown, and then it's all broken out in wording of like what happened by second. And anyone who reads that and then understands what we know at our levels, it's like, you got to question it, man. I mean, there's definitely something going on with Hillary. It's pretty crazy.
That is crazy. And, the media also at the same time is so good at spinning stuff. Like I remember that one time that they recorded her a few weeks ago and she kind of went, oh.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yes. Well,
okay. There's another story to that side too, though. When she did that,
they faked it. Yeah.
Well, they're saying that she did that because the people were asking her all these stupid questions. So she's just like, shut up. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I talked to Andrew Craig, which is a Washington, D.C. insider. He's actually a big time lawyer in D.C. And he said that specific time when the media tried to make it look like she was having a seizure, it was just her goofing off essentially because of the stupid questions. Now, does that mean that she's in great health? No. Does that mean that what you're saying on other things isn't true? No, it doesn't. But you just got to be real careful with the media because it's so good at spinning everything.
Yeah, everything.
Down the wrong path, And I think they've already got decided who's going to be in office.
Of course.
I think it's already decided.
Yeah, I mean, again, they deflect. Matt said it. They deflect everything. Anything at this point that comes in negative about Hillary. I mean, I think we were talking about this was on the last episode, like Dr. Drew lost his job. They 26 years, his show, and he said something about her health negative and they canceled his show. So Hillary's in a no spin zone right now. You come out and you say something about Hillary, you're going to lose. So I guess that means our show won't be on next week, right?
Yeah. Well, these are all opinions, and this is all just theory. This is all conspiracy, swamp gas meets Uranus.
So what do I
That's it.
think? What do I think is going to come ahead of here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that the monetary systems are going to collapse yet either. I think Rex is right on that, because I know that that's going to be way too much anarchy, and I think they're going to what you're going to see is a collapse of religion. That's what I think you're going to see, because the reason I'm saying that is you're already starting to see disclosure coming. I think everyone can see that. SETI's already got a transmission from like a star that they're like, yep, it's aliens.
Well,
They're
the Vatican's already admitted it, right?
I know, exactly.
The
So
thing in Arizona they own now.
what better way to start disclosure than something that's like hundreds of light years away, right? As far away as possible to make it like, a little slow leak and approach to the idea.
So what you're saying is controlled disclosure, because you already said before, there's no way they're just going to make an unraveling.
Well, I think there may be surprises in that. I think there may be surprises in disclosure where things may transpire that certain ones don't expect, certain factions don't expect, where religion may not collapse overnight, but you won't see a rapid transition of religion outward.
But if you're right, and Zach, you answer this, and Rex jump in, of course, but if you're right, wouldn't that cause societal unraveling anyway?
Well, I think what you're gonna see is as they feed in the idea that aliens are real and extraterrestrials out there, you're going to see people starting to just give up religion more and more. And you're starting to see that.
Right.
Religion in some parts of this world, not everywhere. Some places it's increasing, especially in the less developed part of the world where education is a little bit lower. Right. But in some places, in a lot of places like in Italy and a lot of places in the United States, religion is collapsing.
Yeah.
People are leaving the church like crazy because they're learning this truth. And I think that's only going to increase on an exponential level. But it's not going to all happen at once like a big bomb.
So let me say something.
Why they wrote Revelation. That's exactly what the book of Revelation is in the Bible. So when those things start to happen, they can say, see, we wrote about it. The devil's doing it. They're going to burn in hell. We talked about this in Revelation 13. That's exactly. So there's so many. As powerful as that book is, man, I think that when more people start to break away from the church, more people are going to start to join the church because they're going to read that book, and it's just all that mental condition.
Well, just something to Matt's point, and then Zach, jump in real quick. And very well said. Very good point, Rex. Again, this is ridiculous, but we'll say it. If you're watching Ancient Aliens, and again, Ancient Aliens is being broadcast out to literally hundreds of millions of people globally around the world. Because I looked at the other day, I was looking at the broadcast signal for History Channel.
It is disclosure, part of it, yeah.
So the reality is, and Rex already said it, it's 80% or more of the world believes in aliens. So the reality is like, if you don't believe in aliens and you're not watching Ancient Aliens, which again, we would call you the minority at this point, and obviously some people spiritually are not going to admit it, right, because they're still religious. So I think you're kind of right, Matt. There's something coming along those lines. Zach, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know what the next thing to come is, but I would like to see more things happening, kind of like the show and kind of like Michael Tellinger's idea of the Ubuntu movement, where people are totally tuning out to whatever they're saying, whatever they want to disclose, or whatever they want us to tune into, and just create our own show. And not even pay attention to all the crap that they're trying to feed us, because the more we pay attention to it, the more we're still playing that game. If we can kind of branch out and start our own systems, kind of like what happened with the whole American Revolution, where with the colonies and how the British Empire was trying to push all the laws on them, but they created their own government, their own committee, and started creating their own laws. And I think that's something that would be wonderful to see amongst ourselves if we can come together and not play a part of their own system. We need like 1776 all over again.
Yeah, so let me just spin one question more about all what we just talked about with the election for all of you guys to answer, and then we're going to talk about this amazing screenplay, and then we're going to open it up to Facebook Q&A. One of my good friends brought up an interesting point the other day, because I know we've all heard it, Rex more than anybody, because my God, he's probably interviewed 50 people who have said the same thing. Obama's not going to leave the office. They're going to orchestrate some sort of a collapse, and Hillary won't be able to take office, and Obama's going to call in the FEMAs and blah, blah, blah. But so what if Trump does win the popular election, and it doesn't look like he will, but who knows what can happen in the next 2 months, in a landslide? Again, I'm just doing a what if theory here. And Hillary still wins, okay, due to the electoral college. Matt, you're first. Do we have massive upheaval and political or societal instability?
Well, I mentioned religions are going to collapse. The second thing I think is going to collapse is going to be politics, because politics has become so corrupt and so rid with the hands of all the money and the bankers and all those minds. And people know that it's been really exposed through many sides of this campaign, of this election, and across many fronts, not just in the United States. In England, in the United Kingdom, there's a lot of the same talk about the corruption in politics. This is a global thing where people are waking up to how politics is this shell of control. And I think this election cycle is going to be part of that great change, where I think there will be some big civil unrest in the country.
Okay, so you're saying, your guess is, it doesn't matter who wins the election, something weird will happen. There will be some sort of an unravel.
Exactly.
Okay. Rex, thoughts?
I like where you're going with that, Matt, and I certainly appreciate the possibility. If you guys have seen the TV series Mr. Robot.
Of course. I watch every episode. Amazing show.
Especially the first couple, too, I think.
One of my favorite series out there right now, and I'll tell you, it's just amazing.
Are they foreshadowing, Rex? Are they foreshadowing?
They are. That's exactly where I'm going with this. You watch Mr. Robot, and you're going to see the future right there. They're throwing it right in our face.
They literally are, dude.
The fiat currencies, it's going to start to collapse, but it's still going to be there. You're going to have little unrest things. They're just going to take this system that's collapsing, and they're going to take all their goods, and they're going to create a new system as the savior. Yet they're going to still continue to have the power at the top levels. They're just going to continue to feed and do their thing, in my opinion. So, but I do see some serious changes. Yet the more things change, the more
they stay the same. So I'm glad you said that, because I need to post. Zach, you could jump in a second here, but I need to post a video. So I watched the show. I don't know if any of you guys watched the show. And again, I'm not a big TV watcher. I do have a TV in my house. I have kids. They watch educational programming. My wife and I do watch Pulp Fiction at times, just to have our brains detuned from the craziness of the days. But did you guys ever watch that show that it canceled? It was 5 seasons. It died in spring of this year. It was called Person of Interest with Jim Caviezel. But so anyway, the story was about the eye in the sky that watches everything, right? The computers are watching and surveilling us at all times. And then Jim Caviezel and the other guy, this little dork Gerald, who wrote the machine code, was like the good force, like trying to prevent the machine from overriding us. But I have a video in the final episode. It's 45 seconds long. I'm going to upload it to the Decoders of Truth because it's on my phone, because it blew me away when I was watching it. And I didn't watch it live. I watched it like 5 weeks after it ended, probably, when we were caught up on the episodes. It tells the exact same thing that you guys just said. It literally tells us, and this is Christopher Nolan, by the way, that did this show, from Batman. And talk about a guy who's really into this conspiracy lore of the world. He literally tells you what's going to happen. And Harold says it. It's at 45 or 50 seconds, and they basically say, yes, we're going to collapse the currency. Yes, you're all going to become AI. Yes, transhumanism is here to stay. I mean, it's like, I'm watching this, and I'm like, here you go. So it is out there. They do give us glimpses and hints and bits and pieces.
Have you guys seen this series called Humans?
No, I haven't seen that.
Unbelievable. So I binge watched it on Amazon, all 8 episodes in a few days. And I got to tell you, that is incredible, the way they portray the AI movement, the transhuman movement, and it almost gives you compassion for the possibility. They try and spin it as, when we create a robot that can kill everybody, it's a good thing because it might not do it. It might not. And it'll at least take your groceries out for you. And it'll have sex with your wife when you're out of town.
It'll even give you a vaccination for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm telling you, in this series, they've got robots having sex, causing divorces, and, this one's got intelligence.
Dude, I got to watch it. Wow.
And then you can see the full-on symbolism in there. And don't get me wrong, I love symbolism, but they got the Masonic black and white floorboard when they've got certain people die, AI standing over humans, and and then they did the little joke in there when one of the human helpers to the android Mia said, why are you doing this? And she goes, well, because we want to enslave all humans. And then she looked at her funny and she goes, no, I'm just kidding. They kind of look like, are you kidding?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're joking, but we're really not. They're
That's what they do.
We're gonna eat you.
Wow.
Well, They want this projected reality, right? The idea of, okay, just allow AI in and take it over. It's going to be fine. It's okay. Like you guys are saying, it's some of the media in that aspect, and some of what we're allowing in is almost like to allow us to allow it, say, okay, is it okay if AI kind of becomes part of our society and maybe takes over and becomes a big part of your life? Well, watch all these shows that make it look really nice, and maybe it will be okay. And I think that's dangerous. We got to be careful of those kind of influence at all times.
So Zach, what are your thoughts?
If we watch it.
So before you speak up, Zach, I just went live on Facebook. So we're gonna summarize. Zach's gonna get his final say here. We're gonna talk about the screenplay, and then we're gonna do a little bit of Q&A. So go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say, I just want to go back to that almost that Ubuntu movement, and I feel like that's the reality that we need to push, instead of allowing them to push the reality on us, and we can only make choices within the limited box paradigm that they give us. So instead of I understand that we, in a sense, have to move within the system to break the system. But if we can essentially create our own system, then their game is over. Kind of like what I was saying with the whole American Revolution, how the colonies created their own governments instead of allowing the British colonies to impose the taxes and all their laws on them. They set up their own structure and started making, creating money for themselves and creating their own laws, instead of allowing, some other beings or some other, power structure to do it for them. So I would really love to see, people come together and start little movements within ourselves, kind of like the DOT or like the Ubuntu movement, where we're creating our own reality and not living within the constraints that they give us.
I think it's amazing you bring that up, actually, because Jay, this would be a perfect place to just briefly mention what Gerald is part of right now and what is going on around the world. There's a lot of interest by a lot of people, and Gerald Clark is part of it. Where they're looking,
Matt LaCroix.
Yes, I'm probably part of it too. Where these self-sustaining communities are looking like they want to develop in different places, Mexico and different places around the world, where a plot of land like 200 acres could have a mystery school in it, and it could have all self-sustaining growing community where all the vegetables and fruits and all those things that could be raised. And all of a sudden you realize, like, is there really a need for this model of control we have? We can redesign our own. And I think Zecharia is kind of talking about that, where we can forge our own path in the future, not having to follow those models. We can grow our own healthy food. We can grow our own medicine through these plants and all these different things we have. We don't need to rely on any of these things any longer that sicken us.
Right.
I kind of wonder about the energy devices that they're withholding from us.
Yeah.
Completely change everything that we do, releasing just one of these technologies. You give power to the whole world, pulling power and energy from the vacuum or space itself.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, all that stuff's out there. That's a whole nother show. We'll save that for another show, but great points, Zecharia. So the last topic we have, and then we got a bunch of people already on Facebook, guys. It's going nuts. So we got a bunch of questions. So the last topic, and this is probably the biggest topic that we would like to discuss, but we saved it for the end of the show. So Gerald and Matt have been authoring or writing in the background a screenplay. It's called Anunnaki Genesis. It's absolutely fantastic, okay? It is truly the mythos of the Anunnaki. They've been spending long nights burning the midnight oil, perfecting this, tweaking this, doing what they needed to do. We mentioned it briefly on the last show, I think, and then Matt and Gerald also did a podcast together that was very impromptu about the path of the treasure seeker, and they also mentioned it there. Gerald wrote a little bit about they were talking because they were working on the screenplay. But anyway, we want to let everybody know we're not going to share too much information about where we're at with it, but we can tell you guys that it is massively being talked up in Hollywood right now. We actually have a very, very large A-list entity who literally wants to make it either into a trilogy similar to Lord of the Rings, I'm not kidding you guys, or potentially even bigger, a Game of Thrones miniseries, a 7 to 10 year run. Again, we're not exaggerating this. So I'm going to let these guys talk about it, especially Matt, because he's written it. And of course, we're going to let Rex promote it on the Leak Project, but
Big time.
big time, bingo. But
Bingo.
but realistically, if you guys are watching this on the Decoders of Truth inside the Facebook page, okay, and you're watching this on YouTube and you're not familiar with us, you haven't watched any of the episodes, and you have people that you're connected with, please reach out to us. I'm telling you guys, personally, I've read the screenplay. I'm one of only a few people. It is spectacular. I'm a Holly weirdo. I've acted. I've been in the background, so I'm been around that business and that industry. This is a can't miss screenplay that should be a can't miss mega blockbuster movie, if not miniseries, and potentially both. So again, if you know somebody, if you're connected, please reach out to us. This is something that the world deserves. It's the story of us, right, Matt?
That's right. I mean, you look at all these movies that touch into our truth, little pieces of it, like Stargate and all these things where they'll talk about like something where like we might be like a primitive slave species, and then various things like that. But what has actually taken our story, the story of, our DNA being manipulated, and where does Noah's flood fit in, and where does the Garden of Eden fit in, and where does Atlantis fit in? All these things, we're bringing that story together in something like a Lord of the Rings journey. And so I want to show you this. This is pretty exciting. We just finished the final screenplay actually today, and I want to show you this. This is a printed out folder showing this the entire screenplay. So 122 pages.
Show them the artwork. Show them the artwork.
Okay, so this is artwork that's been done. We're going to try to get some extended artwork later. It's just black and white, but we're going to be getting some storyboards done with a lot of this artwork. We have some media studios we're looking at. There's a lot of exciting aspects of this to look at. And if we look at previous Anunnaki things that have been tried to be done, they've been killed right away.
Right.
And when we look at this and all the movement behind it and the interest, you can't help but notice that it seems like it's being allowed as part of this time of disclosure, I mean, why would they, the higher ups who are controlling the information, why would they be the ones who release something? Why wouldn't they just back something that's released by somewhere else, so that then they're not the ones who have to be responsible for it? But I think the important thing there is they have to make sure that what that is released is done in a way that is maybe somewhat correct, because there are a lot of those I believe high up at the top who want this told correctly. The Anunnaki that are part of the light side of things that are changing, transitioning into this time of Aquarius, they'd want this story told correctly. They wouldn't want our human story smeared all over the screen in very incorrect forms where, like, Enlil is like carrying us around, loving us or something. No, that's just not right. That didn't happen. So what we're bringing together here is the story of us, taken from Gerald as a master engineer mind, with all of his evidence, looking at these cuneiform tablets from the Sumerian and Babylonian, Epic of Gilgamesh and Atrahasis, and we're looking at the hardcore evidence, and we're putting together the real story of what occurred, and we're doing it in a way that's exciting and entertaining, with spectacular vistas of Nibiru and orbital paths showing Earth, and then adventures across continents and things being attacked by various wild creatures on this primitive planet. It's an adventure. It's gonna be a wild ride. So if you have people, you just happen to be connected in higher ups in Hollywood, we're looking at every angle to make sure that this happens. So support us if possible.
And Rex, before you go, before you jump in, and Rex can really help with this, but guys, again, is one of only 3 people, probably, or 4 people that's actually read this screenplay. It is legitimately knocked down, super spectacular, fantastic. It's incredible. It is a triple, blockbuster. It's a trilogy, like think of Lord of the Rings, but in that grand of scope, like A-list producer, A-list director, top-notch actors. I mean, it's literally an insane movie. It's full of action. Again, if you don't know what the Anunnaki are, they're like literally 10-foot warrior type, mythos, and at least for the movie. We don't really know if they were, but that's what we believe they were based on all of the cuneiform tablets and stuff. So go ahead, Rex.
What I have to say here, I've been saving this until now. I spoke with John Titor.
Nice.
Today.
John Titor.
John Titor.
Right.
I spoke on today. And I had an exclusive interview with him, Jason Quitt, and Bob Mitchell.
Awesome.
And he claims that he's been to Nibiru.
That's amazing.
And he talks about the atmosphere, the people, the culture. And he said that literally the exact same thing you did, except for not 10 feet. They're about 8 feet, 8 to 9 feet tall. They're a total warrior class. And he talked about their culture, what they're like, their military.
Awesome, man.
Now, like I said, man, this stuff's so incredible. It's like you really got to take it all with a grain of salt. So I would try and get into the details. I was really picking at him to, trying to find out.
That guy's no joke, dude. I've read all that guy's stuff. That guy is no joke.
Well, he's the John Teeter of old that you read about on the internet that talked about the IBM 5100 computer and stuff. Guess what? That's PSYOP. That's not the John.
I totally, yeah.
Now, you really think about it. How could an IBM 5100 computer that's like 2-bit turn into a, a time machine? Yeah, dude. Boom. But probably not, But
everything is a PSYOP, though, right? Like there's a layer of everything.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. But he described them specifically as a military class people.
Right. They have to be.
Well, look, we're the reflection of our society.
Right.
I'm going to let you another little secret. I actually read that screenplay, and it is absolutely incredible. I mean, let's take the Matrix and combine that with Lord of the Rings, put the two together, because the Matrix, I feel, is so key on many points. And Matthew, you brought up such a good point when we talked about the Matrix and talked about the red and the blue.
Yeah.
And he said, should have given them the blue pill, not the red pill.
Right.
Yeah.
The red is more of like the fiery, fierce,
it's a low vibrational frequency too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got the blue, which is more like the feminine.
The force.
The high vibrational frequency.
The force.
Yeah, it's totally different. So, but other than that, the Matrix had so many good points that it hit on. It hit on waking people up. You can see it, you can smell it, you can taste it, you can touch it. But is it really real? That's the thing. It's all like this holographic matrix that we're in, quantified theory. It's incredible. So, yeah, where are we going with this? I've got a little excited there.
Rex, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you for telling us that. And, yeah, Rex obviously was one of the people that read it too. So, honestly, literally between Gerald, myself, and Matt and Rex, I don't know if anyone – obviously our loved ones, but I don't think anyone's read this. And we've already got literally like an A-tier entity inside Hollywood that is talking to us. So, again, as you heard from Rex, as you heard from Matt, as you heard from myself, this, guys, if you know somebody, please have them reach out to us. This is a can't miss. Everybody gets paid type of production. It just has to be with the right people. Of course, we have an NDA that we would make anyone sign before they would have access to read it. But again, we really want to get that out there. So, this is kind of a little minor pitch video. You want to add anything to that, Zach?
I was just going to say it's a perfect time for this movie or somebody to pick this up and run with it, because kind of like on the last podcast, how you're talking about nobody really reads books anymore. Everybody's in the stage of watching movies and TV series, and this would absolutely be a perfect thing to
bridging the gap between the books, right? There it is.
This would be perfect.
Awesome.
I want to throw something in real quick too before I forget. Zecharia, it would be awesome if you could reach out to many of your MMA friends. If you've got people either in Bellator, amateur, UFC, any of the, just even local circuits, and then because that's a key component. Mixed martial artists like yourself, you guys are so powerful in so many levels. And if you guys could start reaching out to others, then we could get some marketing with the UFC. Maybe like look at Joe Rogan. That guy he's pretty awake. He's got his own show. He knows about stuff. You look at Kennedy, Tim Kennedy, incredible fighter. He's awake. He's also like ex-Green Beret Special Forces. So regardless, that'd be nice if you could reach out to some of those guys as well. I think that could help tremendously.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, I'm going to make a quick announcement. You guys got another 10 to 15 minutes to answer questions. Are we good?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So right now, for people that are watching live, and I know there's a little bit delay, please ask your questions. We have a lot of people watching. There's a lot of people watching. We've actually, I think, added another 15 people, Matt, since we've been on the show. So we're almost at 800 members in the group. It's insane.
Wow.
So again, guys, if you're listening to this broadcast, please ask your questions. We're going to say another 10 to 15 minutes. We got a bunch of questions here. Let me try to get a good one here. Okay, so I'm going to ask this one right now. It says, we have just hit a point where we can now genetically modify an embryo with 3 different parents. This has been approved and moving forward. Do you feel an intervention coming in? Rex, go with that.
I think that could be a precursor to the breakaway of families. You know, the people at the top levels do
No
not
shit.
like families at all, and they would
No, they don't.
yeah, let's have this baby be born, and then let's go send them off to this camp, and then we can raise that person to be a certain way, do a certain thing, be our slave. And then once you break away the family and get rid of those family identities, then it's a lot easier for a control mechanism to take place. So we got to make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen at that level. Yeah, if they want to, sure. If you want to go experiment and have 5 different fathers and have a cow head and a horse tail, right on, do your thing. But we still need to make sure to keep the family foundation, I feel, because that is one thing I think that they want to do.
Well said. I agree.
Do you want to, okay, so here's another question. Go ahead, Matt. When the Anunnaki first came here and genetically engineered us as a human hybrid version of them, during that time, they clearly had division issues, like with Enlil and Enki's rivalry. Now I wonder if they would have evolved to a mature state of unity by now. If they have, would they help unite us as one human hybrid species to upgrade us like they are now if they do return? I want to answer that, but you go.
Well, that's a really good question.
An awesome question.
You know, it comes, I was thinking about that. I was actually writing about that today, is as much as we're evolving our consciousness, so are the Anunnaki. It's just, even though they are hundreds of thousands of years old, whatever it is, you know, sometimes it takes a long time to learn new things. Maybe it takes longer to learn.
So great answer. So Mark, that guy, what's his name again? The guy that came in today, the Indian guy that says he's been visited by the Anunnaki. I can't think of his name. Mark Lee, Gerald's buddy. He's a really awesome guy. I'm sorry to say I can't think of his name right now, but you know, the Learn project and his PDF, A.R. Gordon, the Anunnaki learn through ontological knowledge, right? So they see everything from all dimensions, whereas we're learning in the 3 dimension, they absorb knowledge. So he says it's fascinating when you talk to them how they are able to not only anticipate your question and already have the answer served up, but to know exactly how you're thinking so that you go, they can kind of, through telepathy, force you to go in the direction they want the conversation to go, right? So we can't even understand at their intellect how they understand what we think or how our thoughts and feelings. And again, remember, as Gerald has said and conclusively proven in his books, they layered us or clamped us with their DNA, circuits, their latent DNA circuits. So we are a part of them. So as Matt says, as we wake up, right, we are becoming more and more like them. So that ontological learning will eventually be a part of us. And maybe, who's to say, Rex, that this whole transhumanism melding us into AI isn't part of the ongoing project? I mean, I know it sucks to think that. Maybe
of course it is.
Ultimately. Yeah.
Of course it is. And that's why all the movies we see now that do hint towards a transhumanist future combine the two. Look at Battlestar Galactica. At first, it's the humans. They create the Cylons. Then the Cylons go to war with the humans. The humans win. The Cylons disappear. Then the Cylons come back. They blow the piss out of the humans. And then there's a long war. And then at the end, they all end up merging together. That is the absolute push to merge man with machine, and to show both sides. And at the very end of every movie, they portray it being a good thing when we unite. So whether or not that is a good thing, I
don't think it is.
I mean, we don't know. We honestly don't know. It seems like the Anunnaki are evolving us in their route, in their ways, for whatever reason. We also know there are other life forms, other ETs, interdimensional, transdimensional entities who are around too, and they're tweaking us. Again, Ancient Aliens this year, season 11 has had all of that. They had the prototype episode. They had the Greys episode recently. Rex, you've talked to Dr. Jacobs. I mean, there are smart, very intellectual people out there that, have offered their opinion about what is going on. So, I mean, we know there's a lot of species that are involved in tweaking us. So there's got to be an end game. And I would say there's an end game for multiple races, right?
That's right. I'd like to point out the fact that shows like Fringe talk about the idea of
classic.
What happens if a human being focuses everything externally on intelligence and loses all right brain capacity with emotion. And if you look at the capacity, the components of what AI is, it simply lacks all emotion. And that's what makes human beings human, is our emotional side. That's our spark. That's what makes us the most human. So I see it as kind of a threatening thing to me. My antenna goes up when anything takes away from our emotional side that makes us human. So I'm always careful of anything that does that.
Hey, Rex, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about a defense system that's buried deep in our planet that extends over 7,000 miles out of our atmosphere, protecting our planet now from anything incoming?
No. I mean, I know about Star Wars and HARP and some other things, but I haven't heard of that. Now, there's the Rod of God, which has some connection with titanium rods on the ground that it actually connects to cause an explosion, but I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, cool.
I've heard of that a couple times.
So
there may be technology in place to protect us we're not even aware of.
So Rex will link to the show that he did, or share it in the group today. But it's John Titor, right? It's Titor. They're all asking the name, right? Right, Rex?
Oh yeah. The infamous,
the real John Titor, right?
You guys, I'm telling you, he was on the military compound.
Yes.
Literally, when I interviewed him, he was on the military compound. He had his sidearm with him, and
wow.
I mean, I'm telling you what, as much as I was trying not to believe him,
so you were convinced. You were convinced.
It's incredible. Let's just put it that way. You could be right in front of me saying something, showing me a diamond, and I would still be hard to convince me sometimes. But it's pretty damn convincing. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Okay, I'm just looking for more questions. We have
a little disclaimer there.
It's hard to realize that it's real. It's easy to think that it's some kind of almost like a science fiction movie, but the real reality is science fiction. To be honest.
Yeah. So this question's exactly around that. It says, so what do you think about the idea of saving ourselves and being responsible without needing another race to come and save us? Let me answer that, and then you guys jump in. It's already happening. Right? Again, if you read that link that we posted in there today, you read Matt's books, you read Gerald's books, the Anunnaki have very slowly but surely ensured that we evolved to where we're at, right? We know that we're coming from a horrible dark age, right? The Pisces age, and I'm a Pisces, but the Pisces age was one of violence and death and killing and war and maiming and just murder and misery, right? The Inquisition. I mean, we could just go back in every 100 years and see the levels of violence. And we're clearly now evolving to hopefully we're evolving to a quote unquote the age of Aquarius, a more intellectual, enlightened golden age. And there's no guarantee that it's going to happen, as we all know, but it's up to us collectively to become as aware, to work on, being of service to others and to practice loving kindness, as some great member of our group would talk about. But it does become our job and our evolution as a quote unquote species, again, with help from the Anunnaki, in my opinion, to get there. What are your guys' thoughts?
Go ahead, Zecharia.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good question. I'm really into Nassim Harameyn's physics right now, where he kind of applies the physics of the black hole physics into the nuclei of an atom. So where he takes Planck's surface ratio of a black hole, and so surface ratio of the volume of a proton to the surface of the proton, and he ends up with the mass of the universe. So what this essentially is saying is, when all these ancient masters are saying, look within yourself because all the answers are within, the equations that he's coming up with is literally proving that all the information in terms of Planck bits are held within every atom inside of your body. So, the idea of evolving within yourself to essentially do it as a whole, we need not to look to other beings to do that for us. We just need to understand what we actually are. We're not physical beings. We are made up of light and sound and resonance. And
yes.
You know what I mean? So
exactly.
Awesome,
yeah.
man.
The more we understand the new physics that changes our paradigm of what we actually are, I think that'll change the culture.
I got another mind bender. This guy, I'll throw a shout out to him. Mark Raymond, you're the man, bro. Good questions. Rex, you go on this one, then Matt, you follow up. You're going to love this one, Rex. You might want to shapeshift. Will our world as we know it now be just a simulation to replicate the past in our future, where everything is already perfect, and these are all just a software simulation to re-experience how it all began? I need to reread that. That's so good.
Okay, that's a great question. I'm sure there's a lot of validation to that, depending on how you want to translate it. Because if you really think about it, we are in a simulation. Look at our DNA. It breaks down in quad code. There's four. It's essentially quad code. You look at any type of object, whether it's a rock, a plant, a Ferrari Testarossa, it doesn't matter. It all breaks down into protons, neutrons, electrons, oscillators, a certain frequency. So it just depends on the pattern of that frequency is going to dictate what you're seeing. And patterns themselves and symbols are hidden within atoms and protons and electrons and viruses and bacteria and building blocks. So yes, we are in a simulation. Now, whether or not this is a simulation to understand what perfectness is, it does seem as if we're the further we go from source, the more we see this polarity.
Yes.
And I guess the polarity creates that third strand, which you got the red, the blue, creates the purple. Therefore, that is a new essence, a new life force where there is no right, wrong, left, right, yin, yang. It just is. So at the top level, I guess at the apex, you've got the purple, essentially, if you look at that as an archetype of the simulation matrix.
That was nice. I like that, Rex. Beautiful, dude. So it's like the spectrum. It's like the spectrum of of all visible light. Like he's saying, it's what makes up of everything in the universe. It is every piece of a unique vibrational frequency is within the range of duality, right? Every part of, if you look at a rainbow, from red all the way to purple, that is the spectrum of visible light, and that is the spectrum of the vibrational frequency differences that exist throughout the universe. And so instead of fighting against each other, instead of duality with the red versus the blue, basically mammal versus reptile, because that's what the way they function within their vibrational frequency. Instead of this battling without everything, it's just going to be eventually a unity of purple, like you said, where it is like a collection and a combining of all of intelligence from every side we can to become like one mass super endgame race, I guess, where we no longer fight anymore. I don't know.
Let me add one thing to that as well. With what you just said, that makes me wonder as well, this dualistic universe that we live in, these poles that we have, it's almost as if we have to have this in order for that top level to continue to grow and evolve and go higher and bigger, etc.
That's right.
So there's always going to be this polarity at some level. It just depends on which part of the matrix we want to feed upon, or which part of the matrix we want to, like what part of the ladder do we want to be hanging on to, essentially. We can pick and choose, and the further we evolve, the higher up we can go. But if we get bored at that level, then we can just jump down a couple. Or maybe, maybe.
Well, Rex, what you just said, that's brilliant, dude, because there's always polarity. And that person, and again, I can't pronounce her name or his name, that entered the group today that looks like it's a student of the Children of the Law of One, a very brilliant ascended ascetic, said the same thing. And my wife argued about that today, Monica, and we disagreed. And I said, listen, what she's saying or he's saying is right about when there's birth, there's death. When there's life, there's death. There's always the opposite, because it's on a continuum.
It has to balance.
Exactly. There has to be balance. And so there is going to be positive and negative, and the negative will become positive. So again, it's all on a continuum, and it eventually comes around. The pendulum is constantly swinging, and you will come back. It's like, when you die, and I think we all are at a point now where we understand where there is some form of reincarnation. We keep coming back. These avatar hosts of ours, our meat modems, as Gerald would call them. We are in a simulation, as Rex said. When you die, depending on your spiritual evolution as in that meat modem, you go somewhere else, right? Hopefully you're going to go to a next level. You practice service to others. You've been practicing loving kindness, and you're ready to ascend. Again, we talk about ascension, but that doesn't mean that you won't ascend if you're not living that life. If you're service to self, you've got, a parasitic archontic, invaded you as a host, and guess what? You probably go down a couple levels, and that's the brilliance of the Kabbalion in that book. It tells me that even if you go to the lowest level, right, you can still go back up again. It's going to take you a lot longer time. Again, it's the pendulum swinging, but you always get a chance to go back to the ultimate goal, which is oneness with source, as Rex said, the creator of all, becoming one, a light being, or universe, as Marleen says, universal consciousness or awareness. That's the ultimate goal of every soul in existence is to get back to oneness, no separation. You don't have the ego, and you don't have the, the negative side of you that, constantly allows you to be selfish and, into yourself and that stuff. And obviously most humans find ourselves in that, and that's the whole separation, right? We were separated of the one.
Yeah, very nice. I like that, Jay.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I listen to you guys a lot. You want to say something, Zach?
There's this little, I want to just piggyback off that. There's this little analogy where if you take a clear container and you fill it with water, and that's the life essence of something, and your body is the clear container, and you take that container filled with water, which is the life force, and you submerge it into a pool of water, you eliminate the separation where that energy that's seemingly outside of yourself when you're above water becomes, you realize that you're just a part of it when you're submerged into it. So you don't see yourself as a plastic, or a clear container holding the energy. You are the energy, and it's outside of you.
Awesome, man.
You know what I mean? So we need to go back into source.
I think one of the great transitions that's going to take place during this time of Aquarius in our awakening to consciousness is going to be this transition of a third dimensional reality of perception up to the fifth dimensional reality of perception. And what that means is you go from being, I'm transitioning eventually to be mind over matter. Instead of starting as matter over mind, you become mind over matter, which is you realize that your physical avatar here is just a vessel that contains your energy,
right,
your essence, your soul. And then you no longer fear death. Your mortality disappears out the window.
Right.
You realize that you're here and you can do whatever you want and you can get whatever you want out of this experience. And at that point, you transition out of the third dimension and you forever leave that. And I like to think of that transition as kind of the great transition of this road of enlightenment. You have to leave the third dimensional aspect of thinking if you ever can want to progress your way along the path.
So guys, we're right at 2 hours right now, literally, since Rex joined us. I want to go maybe 2 more questions tops, and then I want to summarize. I'll just summarize right now. I'm going to let you guys all have your final say. Let me just look. There's one question somebody asked about, and you can answer it in a second. What about getting caught in the reincarnation trap? You can go first, Rex. But I want to just say this real quick because I know all of us, and this is for Rex's show too. We really want to have Mark Passio come on our show.
Yeah.
Okay. Rex, have you interviewed Mark before?
No, but I'll send him an invite. I'm sure there'll be no problem getting him on.
Awesome. We want Mark Passio to come on the show. Of course, come on Rex's show as well. And then, of course, Michael Tellinger, shout out to you. We know you're in the Decoders of Truth group. So hopefully you watch this video when it's on the Facebook wall tomorrow. We would love to have you. And then finally, you guys get the final last word. There's a lot of people in the Decoders of Group that are amazing characters with amazing information. We are going to have each and every one of you on the show at various points and times. Please reach out to us. There are 3 people currently now lined up since Zecharia. They're going to be coming on. You're going to love their stories. They're fascinating people. They're global. One is in the UK. One is actually here in Southern California, and they're both absolute seekers deluxe. So you guys have the final say.
Go ahead, Zach.
Okay.
Rex or Zecharia.
First, I just want to say thanks for having me on the show, and thanks to everybody out there watching. Thanks for just being a part of this group and being a part of this movement. I think the more understanding and the more communication that we have with one another, the more it's going to allow us to break free from the systems of control that we're enslaved by. So I just want to thank everybody for, being here and spreading this information and talking amongst ourselves. And hopefully we can just, create our own paradigm in our own box to live in instead of living out something else or somebody else's reality. So it is within us, all the information and all the energy that we're all made of. It is all one, and the more we can realize that within ourselves, the more we can portray that into our own existence. So, namaste, and thank you guys very much.
That was profound, Zecharia.
I honestly just want to say that you're coming back on the show again, bro, so don't be lost. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful what's happening in the Decoders of Truth, as well as these podcasts we're doing. Look at the collaboration. Rex is here, joining us on these, reaching out with all the audience he has. It's really amazing what's happening right now on every level. So, everybody needs to hold on to positivity in their life throughout these changes. Don't let any of these negative things that are coming down the road affect your growth in this path, because in the end, there should never be a fear of death or any things that are coming along in the future, because I think instead of it being our time to end and ascend, I really think it's our time to shine now. So I'm very optimistic going forward. I think everyone should be too. If they look at, you can look at things from two different angles. Try to look at it from the angle of how important we are for this time, and always remember that.
All right, Rex, you get the final say, but we just got a question we might want to answer. So go ahead, Rex, and then I'll ask you guys if you want to answer it. Go ahead, Rex.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll answer the question. And first of all, as far as Mark goes, when we invite him on, I was thinking of all of us, not just coming on the Leap Project.
No, for sure.
Great.
I was talking to Mark, and that'd be great. And as far as the information that we brought to the table today, I've spoken to Matthew before. He reached out to me on the Leap Project and just gave me so much good knowledge. And I love your optimism, man, because I feel thank you.
Totally,
I think,
man.
I mean, if we could all be as optimistic as you, holy cow, things would definitely change. And I think would be at a higher level of intelligence, and people would be a lot happier, a lot more balanced, and that would be great. And until then, I guess I'll do my best to try and look at things with a little bit more of an optimistic approach. I guess that over the years of thinking I had the answers and finding out something different and being, like I said before, more of a preacher, not a teacher, I guess, it's kind of showed me a way to help people better by them finding their own path without me, showing them where it is, essentially. So with that said, I appreciate being a part of this. And Jay, you've taught me a lot, man. I love your energy, dude. It's off the charts. And it's great that we can collaborate. Zecharia, you're awesome. I hope we can speak again soon. And I appreciate all the comments that I've read in the Decoders of Truth, with the nice comments they've left about myself, about you guys. And I can tell that just about everybody in there really genuinely does want to help. They want to give bits and pieces of information that they think is going to help everybody evolve. And you've got the trolls out there and everything. And even those guys have a place sometimes, and unless it's just so stupid that it just doesn't have any validation. But even the trolls once in a while can kind of get you going a little bit, as long as they have respect. And I don't hate the trolls, man. I just know when to feed them.
Right.
You gotta know when to feed
Well,
them,
actually, Rex, I didn't
nice
even tell you all the amazing compliments you're getting. Like, they're saying sexy Rexy. Like, dude, it's a circus over here. But wow, somebody just said, has Rex been swayed to the light side? LOL. So yeah, the group is amazing, dude. Yeah, the group is amazing, and obviously, Rex, we love you. Matt is Mr. Positivity. He has completely swayed me.
Thanks, guys.
If I had been left to my own devices, I'd already been in a underground bunker somewhere in Vegas. But the reality is that all this, the Decoders of Truth, this show, our reach, the brands that we're building, the outreach, the community, it's just sensational stuff. I mean, like, I have never seen a group grow this fast virally on Facebook with not just, newbies. I mean, we've got some major A-list tier folks, from the esoteric community and the seeking community. They're reaching out and coming in, and we are absolutely so excited about that. And again, our hearts are full of gratitude. And I mean, I really don't know what else to say. I have this one question, but it got cut off. And I'll try to read it. You guys can say it. And this is it, guys. And all of you guys watching on Facebook, literally, guys, there's like 50 people. Thank you for watching. It says, with Hollywood now pushing out more content on a level of depth that we haven't seen since shows like Ancient Aliens and now the ultra popular Stranger Things, which Rex is a big fan of, which is
watching that right now.
Awesome.
Which is touching on topics like MK Ultra.
Yep.
To now where we have a presidential candidate going as far as even saying in a press conference, talking about the New World Order, trying to take over. Is this info or disinfo?
All of the above, absolutely, because you've got tons of good information in Stranger Things. And the funny thing about that is, I started watching that series. I binge watched it, but I watched it right after I interviewed Douglas Dietrich. And Douglas Dietrich, we were talking about MK Ultra. We're talking about these weapons that are created with like demons and spirits and energy, all this stuff. And then I watched Stranger Things, and I'm like, holy, that's Douglas
the same
Dietrich
thing
right there.
There it is.
That's exactly what he said. So that's those synchronicities that come into play. And there's a lot of validation of that, but there's also a lot of Hollywood psychobabble. And as far as the stuff that the president said about the NWO, we'll go back to, Bush. Go back to Daddy Bush. New World Order.
Exactly.
It's been around for a long time.
Long time.
That's the new.
That's the stuff we got to be
You're
careful.
right. It's nothing new. You're right. They've been pushing it. You're right. They've been pushing it for 50 years. I mean, Zebu Brignuski was talking about it 50 years ago.
We can't let it happen. It's not that they're going to do it. We can't let it happen.
Why not? Let's make our own new world order.
Yeah.
Why we give them all the
I mean, I think the Dakota
our own new world order. You guys can have your own. We'll have our own.
These guys are saying, these guys are basically, we got one guy in there right now saying that they're going to start the t-shirt company. So here we go.
That would be awesome. Dakotas of Truth t-shirts. I really support that.
Hello.
The gal said, because I asked the question and we didn't answer it. So this is the final question. What about the reincarnation trap? Who wants to answer it?
I'll answer that. And I don't have the answer, but I'll answer it anyway. Okay, so you've heard the theory of you go to the light, and that's the reincarnation trap, right? Because it brings you back to the start. And so don't go to the light, stay in the dark. And I think about those bug zappers that are very nice and white and bright, and you've got that fly that's like, oh, look, it's the light. So I don't know. It's kind of a freaky thing there. Do you want to be reincarnated? Maybe that's not a bad thing. But what if you don't go to the light and you stay in the dark? Does that mean you stay in the real time zone, essentially, where you're like a ghost walking around endlessly? Does that mean you can put on a jetpack and magically send yourself off to Neptune? I don't know. But that's a good question.
I'll take that right after. I think that's a trick to make us not go to the light by pretending that the light is bad somehow. When has the light ever been bad? I mean, you mentioned a bug zapper, but we're talking on a higher level. You know,
Right.
the light has always been the source of our greatest connection. And so to me, this ascension process where they're trying to get people to not go to the light, I think that means they won't ascend. They'll be thrown back here to do this entire experience again. So if you see the light, you better head towards it.
It's definitely a mind bender, and you guys are going to laugh at this, but I turned off the Facebook live video so she couldn't see the answer. So we'll let her know. You know, all you have to do is watch till the end of the video and ready.
There you go.
Get some
I
ascension,
love it.
right? Yeah.
And while you're at it, pick up the copy of TRT and pick.
I did not mean to do that. I feel bad. I'm so sorry. She can't hear us, so I can't talk to him anymore. But guys, that was absolutely a spectacular show. We hit on so many great topics. Zach, you were amazing, bro. Thank you so much for your contribution. You guys have any
Thanks
final
for coming
thoughts?
on, bud.
Any final thoughts?
Be the change you want to see.